What does every single CS player do the first time they launch the game? Of course, they just go straight into the settings and optimize stuff. Everyone's setup is unique, but let's agree, the differences usually apply to pretty standard things like sensitivity, resolution, and maybe keybinds. But sometimes you come across players whose settings make your eyes pop. And today, my friends, as you might have already guessed, we will be talking about those setups, exactly the strangest and the weirdest ones, as well as some very unusual sitting positions, let's say. You're watching CS2 Stories Hub. Don't forget to follow the channel, drop a like, and let's begin. Gamers have been using WASD for movement for decades. Half-Life, which Counter-Strike originally started as a mod for, was one of the first games to popularize this exact layout. It is considered the most logical and comfortable option because you have plenty of nearby keys on the left and bottom for sprinting, jumping, walking, and crouching, depending on the game. Plus, it just makes sense to keep your left hand as far left as possible, away from your right hand that controls the mouse. But not everyone likes the default layout. For example, Gabe Newell, who don't use WASD at all. Instead, Valve's boss prefers ESDF, which is just kinda to the right. And on the professional scene of Counter-Strike, there were and still are pros who went even further. Let's start with the legend of Swedish and World Counter-Strike, Get Right. He has won a major and became the Player of the Year twice, while using some truly wild movement binds. He moves forward with R, left with D, right with G, and backwards with F. Moreover, inspired by the Swede, James later adopted the same setup. He explained that it makes sense to leave more space on the left side of the keyboard, for extra keys. My friends, try placing your hands on R, D, F, G. Do you feel comfortable? Well, maybe, but reaching Shift becomes a problem. And to solve that, James uses space for walking instead of Shift. But, this is just the beginning. Let's talk about Jax. You remember the French guy, right? He used to play for G2, and early on, he was actually closer to Mezii than Nico was. He was like a best friend and big brother figure for him. And Jax is still playing CS on pro level. Well, at least he's trying. In December, his Musketeers disbanded, and now he's looking for a new team. So here's the thing about Jax. For movement, he doesn't use any letter keys at all. He uses arrows. On a standard keyboard, Shift and Control are still right next to the arrows. I mean, left, right, left to the arrow. Well, you get it. So overall, the setup isn't that crazy. Yes, it's unusual, but the next one will definitely surprise you, especially since it belongs to Mezii, a back-to-back major champion with vitality. Yes, and my friends, this is probably the weirdest config on the tier 1 scene. First of all, Mezii plays with a very unusual aspect ratio. Most players stick to 4:3 or 16:9 or maybe 16:10, but Mezii plays with 5:4. Why? How is that even comfortable? No one really knows, but that's just the beginning. Up until now, we talked about players who move forward using non-standard letter keys or arrows. Still, all that is tied to keyboards, right? Mezii went a step further and completely reinvented the wheel. Mezii moves forward using the right mouse button. Let me say that again. Mezii moves forward using right-click. You've got the obvious question, right? Why would anyone do that? And how? But the answer is actually pretty funny and kinda wholesome. Mezii is one of the few pro players who got into gaming not after his old brother, but after his dad. Mezii's father is a serious gamer, and one of the first FPS games he ever played was Kingpin, a game released back in 1999. Honestly, I had no idea the game even existed before making this video, so I'm pretty sure most of you didn't either. but here you go. So Mezii's dad was learning how to bunny hop, and someone told him it was easier to do if he moved forward using the right mouse button. Then, over time, he kept the bind in the other games as well, and when he introduced the young Mezii to Counter-Strike Source, he naturally kept the same setup. Surely Mezii got used to it and never changed it again. And somehow it worked out. Mezii became the first player in history to win a major while moving forward on right-click. Can you imagine? And that's not all. That's not the only weird thing about his settings. To put it lightly, his entire setup is screwed. He uses W for slow walking. He jumps on A and, well, crouches on C, which might be default in some games, but definitely not in CS. He moves left with S and right with D. At least that part sounds normal. Now, you're probably wondering, if Mezii uses the right mouse button to move forward, what's his scope button? Well, guys, it's simple. It's the side mouse button, and that's all. I strongly do not recommend using his setup. You as well might go crazy. By the way, before joining Vitality, Mezii played for Fnatic, and at one point, fashr was one of his teammates, a Dutch CS player who also decided to completely mess with the config. Just like Mezii, he moves forward using the right mouse button. I mean, at this point, it doesn't really surprise you anymore, right? But wait, the rest of his binds are absolutely crazy. fashr jumps using the question mark key. He moves right by pressing the period key, and he moves left using the comma key. And for the full experience, he moves backwards by pressing the semicolon. Holy crap, I mean, it's almost like WASD, but on the right side of the keyboard. And be honest, how often do you press these keys? Yeah, now fashr uses them all the time. And that's still not all, because fashr also uses mouse inversion, which means when he moves the mouse upwards on the mousepad, his crosshair moves downwards in the game. Well, and yes, when he moves it downwards, the crosshair goes up. Why? Why would anyone even use this setting? It actually has a very narrow and specific purpose. For example, mouse inversion is enabled by default in flight simulators, you know, for realism. Because if you want your plane to go up, you pull the stick towards yourself, not push it away. It's kinda natural, but justifying this setting in FPS games is extremely hard. Unless you accidentally turned it on the first time you launched the game, and simply got used to it and forgot to fix it. At that point, relearning feels pointless, right? Just like it feels pointless not to change your mousepad for 5 years, and that's exactly what Matish does. Oh, can you imagine an ex-Fnatic player again? It really feels like every Fnatic roster has to include at least one player with some weird settings or weird gear. So when Matish was asked why he doesn't just buy a new mousepad, he couldn't explain it properly.
Can I ask you what the hell this mousepad is?
Jesus, don't ask me that. That's really like introverted question, but don't ask me for that. I don't have an answer for that. I probably have it for a few years already, and yeah, it's pretty slow. That's why I used it so many years before, so that's why.
So you're just comfortable with it? This doesn't bother you at all? This just works?
Nah, that's just a part of the plan.
Maybe the real reason is much simpler. Maybe Matish really believes that this mousepad brings him luck, and that's why he refuses to replace it. Reddit users even joked that this was the last mousepad in the world made for left-handed players, so getting a new one is simply impossible. Although recently Matiz finally did it. He changed his mousepad. And you know what? G2 finally won a tournament. Is that a coincidence? Well, maybe. I should say that we didn't find many other strange mousepads among pro players, excluding anime stuff, but a lot of them experiment with monitor positioning. Do you guys remember Cypher? He played for the legendary Into the Breach lineup that made it into the major playoffs in Paris, and he also played for Fnatic. this is unbelievable. Well, when he plays, he turns his monitor away from his teammates and sits at a specific angle, definitely an unusual posture. But the explanation is simple. When Cypher was a kid, his gaming space was extremely limited, let's say, and he had to squeeze into it, and because of that, he got used to sitting at the PC in a non-standard position, and that's all. But an even stranger posture belongs to a player Doru from the South African team Bravado. He literally tilts his monitor sideways. It looks completely uncomfortable, but in this case, it's not about habit, it's about health. After an accident, his close-range vision became distorted, so when he tilts the monitor like this, the image looks normal to him. And probably the most complicated relationship with the monitor belongs to, obviously, YEKINDAR. How does he even see anything while sitting so close to the screen? I mean, guys. But YEKINDAR explained this many times. He tried different postures and different distances over the years and eventually settled on what he uses now. This position gives him a stronger sense of immersion in the game, as funny as it sounds. I mean, I tried playing like that myself, but I couldn't last even a couple of minutes. But, I mean, don't tell anyone, okay? Yeah, and I definitely don't recommend trying the tilted monitor. Also, speaking of unusual postures, we can't forget the American CS legend JDM. He used to sit in his chair like he was lying on a beach lounger by the sea. In the community, that posture was nicknamed the Cadillac. Considering his American, I mean, yeah, that clicks. And then there's Shiro. He puts a regular pillow behind his back to increase the distance between the chair and the desk. He also doesn't like his arms hitting the armrests, so at boot camps he prefers using simple office chairs instead of gaming ones. And because of this, his back issues got worse, so he's trying to fix it right now. Ideally, Shiro says he would like to get rid of the pillow, but for now, this is just how he can play. And you know, speaking of sports, people don't like to change their habits. Friends, how do you play? Do you have any different weird setups or maybe postures? Share yours in the comments below. I mean, we're definitely not judging, just having a good time. And surely, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button to follow our channel and yeah, drop by in the comments below and maybe even hit the notification bell. Friends, there's a lot of CS stories yet to be told, so we're not saying goodbye for a long time. See you soon.